Hey guys, you're listening to this week's episode. For exclusive content, Q&As, and more, check us out on Patreon. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Swear to God podcast. Looks like we're in the apocalypse now, but first let's enjoy that double shot espresso, am I right? Every week we dive into culture and conversation to chew the flavor out of, from politics in Washington to pop culture in Hollywood. If you know who Mitch McConnell is but still spend most of your rent money on concert tickets, you are not alone. You're in the right place, my friend. Welcome to the Sinners Club. I wanted to first talk about the exciting political news that was announced this afternoon. I think you probably know what I'm talking about.
I think I do. Does it have to do with a certain vice president?
Yes!
Yes! Kamala! Welcome to the ticket.
Right? How do you
Yeah.
feel about it?
I'm excited. I think that, as Biden had promised, he wanted to pick a woman, and I was really hoping that he was going to go with a woman of color, just long overdue. And just with the movements going on right now, I think it's really important to have a woman of color in such a position of power. I'm excited. And I like that she'll stand up to Biden, I think, and as we've seen in debates. But how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I cried a little bit when I found out. Not because I think she's perfect for the position, but being a woman and being a woman of color, and if all goes as planned, barring something horrendous happening, if Biden actually is a one-term president as he promised he would be, she is then the presumptive Democratic nominee for 2024.
Which is crazy. But
I agree with you talking about her kind of not just being a stand-in. I think she is her whole unique, fully formed person as a politician, as a lawmaker, as a lawyer.
Yes.
And she has the political capital. She understands how the system works. I think she did an amazing job during the Kavanaugh hearings.
Yes, she did.
She did a really great job there.
Really good job.
And I understand that some progressives are, critical of her record when she was an AG in California.
Sure.
But I also think that she has evolved on some of those issues. She's apologized with the truancy stuff.
And I think that's an important quality that a lot of times I think people get shamed for changing their minds, but sometimes it's not changing your mind. It's growing and evolving and learning from past mistakes. And I think a lot of people don't want to admit to doing that. And
Exactly. And I think the purpose that she was sort of going after there, she was a little too punitive, but she wanted to get kids in school and she wanted kids to be in school more often, which I think is a noble cause, right? She just went about doing it in the wrong way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then her views on weed have also evolved. I'm really glad that she's like, yes, it should be legalized, no problem. I was hoping that she would get there.
Me too, because to me, I've really never understood the purpose of being so anti. I can understand if you don't want to do it or smoke it, fine, but just having it be legal, and especially what it will do for incarceration rates unfairly to
Oh my gosh,
people of color. And yeah, I'm glad she just evolves as a person and she listens. And I think the progressive group that's in Congress and everything is going to hold her accountable, perhaps maybe even persuade her and change her mind on things.
I hope so. Yeah, I think that's the thing that I keep holding on to for those progressive messages. I think Bernie did a good job in moving the party that way, especially in these 2 rounds of primaries. But Kamala Harris especially seems to me to be a woman who is open and willing to listen. I would hope, right? I mean, we've seen her evolution so far, so I would hope that is going to continue.
Yeah, me too. But it seems like it. It seems like that's her personality type. Yeah, I hope so.
I've seen some people using the hashtag and talking about her, and the response has been like, "Oh, everyone's saying defund the police, and we decided to elect a cop." Which, in my mind, she's not a cop, but it's ironic going against the quote unquote law and order president that the Democrats are selecting someone calling a cop. I'm like, okay, so it's null and void.
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, here we are.
I don't know. The announcement suddenly made things feel real for me. Did they
Yeah,
do that to you?
it made it feel a lot closer because I think like with the way time has been moving, at least for me in the pandemic, and like with all of the things that we usually use like as like markers and like the conventions happening and like this was the first time one of those milestone type things like happened, and it feels like, oh right, we are like less than 100 days away from this. I'm one of those people who definitely had like a trajectory and like coming into being comfortable with talking about politics from the sense of like I knew my beliefs, but like I wasn't sure if like I sounded smart because there's such like this like stupid false gateway into like talking about politics that like we set up for ourselves, I feel. Um and I TikTok actually like helped me get over that in a way. I always wanted to do like comedy and politics because the reason I love that is because it presents something that's like complex and like hard to break down in this like beautiful package that's like easy and digestible and can kind of serve as like a starting point to like a bigger discussion. You know, like maybe not everything is in that, but here's like where we can go from this. Yeah, and then on TikTok I found that like videos I was making people were liking and responding to and like they were doing well. And then I what I really enjoyed though was that like when I had discussions in the comments with people that like we totally disagreed, but then like in the end usually we still didn't agree, but I think like we both like respected one another's like points of view and like better understood, oh, here's like what's priorities for you. Here's how you arrive to this. Just because right now there's so much of like just hating the other side. And it's like there's so much more humanity between us than there is differences. And like it's something I think about.
It's even the best case scenario sometimes when you can end a conversation like that without screaming
Yeah,
at each
exactly.
other, right?
Yeah. Cause like especially online, there's like you're hiding behind so much. So like people will use like such harsh language, which like I don't know that I- I've never been like a screamer or a yeller. I can't like interact like that. I usually shut down. But online, you're getting such a fragment of what's going on, you know?
What I admire, especially with people that are making political content on TikTok, yourself included, is it's accessible in a way that if you kind of have an inkling of what politics means, or maybe it's an election you think matters, but you haven't been political, this is your foot in the door, right? It's like, oh, hey, this is a guy that I think is cool and makes funny jokes about his grandma, but he's also talking about mail-in voting. What does that mean? How do I get more info, right?
Yeah, because it's like everyone can be many different things, right? Like you can be worried about a guy texting you back and also like worried about something far less trivial. You know, like you have multitudes, everybody does. But yeah, that's what I like about TikTok too. It's like, oh, I just saw like a cute dog video and now I like learned something that I want to look more into. Um, yeah, like I was shocked to find out because I posted something about mail-in voting and I was like shocked to find out how what people said in response to it.
Oh God. Oh no, what did they say? You're making
Like
me nervous.
just like these things that were like such like I don't even know where they like got the information from. Like it was like, yeah, well, one person was hiding 400 ballots in their basement that were all like made out to dead people. Um, People are registering their dogs, and I looked that up. It happened once in 2007 in Seattle.
Right.
Like, this is a very but Trump said that that's what's happening. So it's just like, trickling down. But I'm like, how in my 30s are we spending our time defending science in the mail? Like, what is happening?
It feels like the Twilight Zone, doesn't it?
It does, like, just wasted energy.
There have been hypocrites in politics, like it plays out all the time in almost every interaction, I think, in politics. And the dangerous part for me here, I think, is Trump seems to be getting away with a lot of that, like dropping a little bomb about we can't trust mail-in voting except for in Florida.
Right.
And there's no pushback on something like that. But what it ends up doing is it lays the groundwork for these false ideologies and lies that sort of change the shape of reality in America. And how do you argue with someone who believes what he says and
Right.
believes the 400 ballots because he debases the media, so you can't trust the press anymore? and it's everything's against him. And I think that's actually quite dangerous for our democracy and our institutions. So it starts with this like tiny little
Totally.
thing, and it branches out into everything, and here we are.
Right.
Science
Exactly.
is wrong, mail-in voting isn't safe.
I believe myself to be so right given the facts and like the research and like the things that I have read.
You're not
And
alone in that.
yeah, yeah, great. Love that. And to me, like those are such clear facts, right? Like, it's like from scientists and whoever. And I can't imagine like seeing that and being like, that's fake or that's false, which is like what I do to stuff that's like, what Trump says, or it's like from a super like conservative like blog or something. I'm like, oh, those are so clearly not facts. And I'm like, are those as clear to you as they are to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like we live in separate realities. And
Yes.
there's no convincing anyone of anything.
Yes. And it's so scary.
It
Like,
is. It
yeah.
is. And how do you fight that once it's begun, right? Because if say I'm a conservative and I can only believe in Fox News and
Yeah.
I'm anti MSNBC as strongly as me, Sophie, is anti Fox News, how do
Yeah.
you even start to bridge that gap? The one thing that I did appreciate, I had Jimmy Davis on. He's the host of the Moderate podcast, and he is more conservative than me for sure. He voted for Bush twice, just to like set the scene of his
Okay.
politics.
Yeah.
But he said the conversation around mail-in voting is ridiculous. It's one of the safest methods of voting. And when you look at fraud, what has happened is it's been bipartisan fraud, right? There's fraud on both the Democratic tickets and the Republican tickets. And he said, all you need to do is trace that back and you can see where the system is flawed and it's equal and it's very, very rare. And I think pointing out examples like that kind of stops people's blood from boiling and makes you kind of think for a second, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, both sides are flawed in this. One's not more flawed than the other, therefore it's fine. But what I try to do to like combat that when it's like snowballing is if there happens to be a little piece of what they're saying that I'm like, okay, that might be some truth or validity to that. So I'll try to pull on that or just try to validate because a lot of times like the messages just sound so angry. So like I'll say something like, I totally understand why you're frustrated with like a two-party system, but like unfortunately, like in my opinion, XYZ. And then that will kind of like diffuse, I guess maybe
Mm-hmm.
is the word.
Mm-hmm.
But usually most of the time, and I have no analytics on this. This is just like from me going to people's profile pictures. It's
Uh-huh.
always men who are so much less wanting to like have a conversation, and it's like always women who are very like not always, but like for the most of the time for me, it's women who want like polite discourse and like
Interesting.
learning. And I have no hard facts to back that up other than me just going to a handful of people's profiles.
But
So
it's your experience.
yes,
Yeah.
that's just my experience.
I wonder if that's just because you are a woman making
Yeah,
content, if women will be more empathetic or more willing to listen. Because I feel like that's probably generalized throughout society, right?
yeah,
Men usually trust men more when they speak and find
right.
them truthful, and vice versa with women.
Yes, yes.
Um, I think it's also interesting on TikTok because I've been trying to follow a number of creators who maybe probably vote differently on some of the issues than me,
Mm.
but are fairly anti-Trump. So like a lot of
Oh,
Republicans that are anti-Trump that are
yeah.
doing the good work, you know? Um, and I've learned a lot from them, and I've learned a lot about how they frame their arguments and how they construct
Oh,
arguments. And
interesting.
I think that that's been helpful for me. And then there's also the awesome, like, Gen Zers that are doing like talk the vote and get out the vote.
Yeah, they are so cool. Like, I'm just like, yes, keep doing all of these things. Like, you guys are very good at dancing, but like also know so much about like politics. Like, they're so much cooler than I've ever been in my life. Like,
I do love the possibility of getting more young voters registered and mobilized via TikTok because there's a woman I love. She is a statistician and does a lot of election analysis. Her name is Rachel Bidikofer, and she says the difference in elections really is about who comes out to vote as opposed to who switches parties. Like the idea of some Republicans coming and voting for Kamala um, Biden ticket is probably rare, but if we can get enough young people who haven't voted before to be excited about that ticket, that is really what makes the difference, which makes sense to me. I also cannot wait to watch the vice presidential debates with her. And I can't wait. Where's the popcorn?
Exactly. Like I am throwing a party with like myself and my parents
Yes, same.
and like
I'm gonna
having
have
a
a Zoom call
blast.
with my friends. Like, hey guys.
Yes, 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 yes. That would be a fun Zoom date. Like if
Right.
you guys are
Yeah.
on the same page politically.
There you go.
Yeah.
So with the election coming up, I was really excited when you brought up ranked choice voting, and I want to dive into that a little
Yeah.
bit if you like, because I haven't heard many people talk about it. I think a friend and I spoke about it like a year and a half ago. That's actually when I first heard about it. I hadn't before,
Mhm.
which I feel kind of foolish
Oh
doing.
no, I'm super new to learning about it too.
Yeah, so what intrigues you about it, and what are
Yeah.
your thoughts? And I'm fine with you kind of explaining it for people, or I can give a
Okay.
little explainer. It's up to you.
So ranked choice is this concept. I believe they have it statewide in Maine, and then a couple other states are using it. But essentially, rather than just having two parties, or rather than having like an RNC candidate and a DNC candidate, there are multiple candidates that are all a lot more viable than they are in the two-party system. And when you go to vote, you rank your choices as 1, 2, and 3. And then if your first choice doesn't make it to the next level, then like your next round pick goes forward. And it's kind of a way to make third parties more viable, because rather than campaigning to like one side or the other, people have to kind of spread their campaigning amongst like a wider set of people, wider set of values. So it wouldn't be more as pitted as one against the other, but rather people campaigning to like a more diverse net, because if you're not people's first choice, you might be their second choice.
And I think one of the important things I read about it that keyed me in was it helps eliminate sort of the protest vote,
Yes,
right? Like if you
yes, yes,
don't
yes,
think your candidate can win, one of the great things
exactly.
about ranked choice is, say your top tier candidate gets eliminated, second tier candidate is up for grabs, but they also get eliminated, those percentages get distributed to other candidates in the order that you rank. So it's actually more representative of the popular vote.
Yes, 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 exactly. Thank you. Um, but yeah, that's like what intrigued me about it actually, was the third party thing. Because to be honest, I haven't spent much of my time getting to know third party candidates throughout, just because I've always thought it was like RNC and DNC. But then like a couple years ago, I started like realizing and reading about how corrupt they kind of both are in very similar ways to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, well, what's our options here? Because, like, um, in my opinion, like the third party vote kind of always has been that protest vote, just
Yes,
because the
absolutely.
system's not built to have a third party win. So but like third party voters aren't wrong for wanting better choices that more closely align with their morals. And I think like that's the frame of thinking that I had to adjust to like understand third party voters better, because it's true, I would just get mad at people for voting third party without like understanding why. So that's what caused me kind of to, because I was like, okay, well, the third party vote doesn't change the system, it just disrupts the system. And that doesn't really, and that's what it's designed for. Like people think third party voting is against the system, but it's really just part of the system to take away votes from candidates, I think. So that's how I started reading about ranked choice and how it kind of eliminates that exact problem of um, the protest vote. And like, it just seems like a more fair way to do things.
Absolutely.
I think I was reading of country, I forget like which countries use it, but like people are just a lot happier and feel more represented.
I also think it seems to promote a larger kind of diversity of ideas and
Yeah.
thought, which we've seen, I think similar to like the Democratic primaries, all of those people collectively can bring ideas, and some are legitimized by receiving votes. And if you do that in a ranked choice system, you'll have more robust policy.
I think I read somewhere, basically, someone was saying how Biden and AOC, it's crazy that they're in the same party because their policies are so different, yet we only have these two. Oh, I think it was on Hassan Minhaj, the Patriot Act.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I think that's where I heard it. But yeah, it was basically like, how are they in the same party? Like, their policies are so different. They are in the same party, but I see the argument for like, yeah, how is that possible, you know?
And I'm sure that people in the Republican Party feel similarly too, right? I'm sure that there are discrepancies.
Yeah, exactly. I would assume so. And I think ranked choice would like give more candidates a better like platform and stuff.
Exactly. I think, and even you can look at this presidential race as a perfect example of why we need ranked choice for so many reasons, but it would eliminate Kanye West as a spoiler for Biden, right? Like that wouldn't be a fucking problem.
Yes. And like it would also eliminate like the voting for the lesser of two evils thing that we always have to do.
Yes.
Like, and I see why that's so frustrating. Like, of course it is. Like we deserve better than that. You know, imagine like you're in a relationship and it's like this horrible person you're dating and you're like, well, he's not that. And it's like, well, okay.
Right. That's the best that we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so yeah, I think ranked choice could be really exciting. And I think the best way people could start like looking into it is just looking into like local governments and seeing how to advocate within. There could be groups in your area and stuff.
Have you read of any examples of local governments that have ranked choice voting? I haven't looked into this yet.
So I read I think Maine uses it like overall for all of their elections.
Okay, so yeah, you said statewide. I wonder if like the Bay Area does it. I feel like they would be an early adopter.
I think like Oakland and Berkeley do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no shit. Awesome.
Yeah, so I think it's like it's getting there. Like progressive cities are like using it. It feels like a good direction to go into at least.
And the criticisms I've read of it, apparently it just has similar problems to the two-party system and the winner-take-all voting that we have now. So even if people think of it as a large change, it wouldn't be more problematic than the system we have, and it would actually function better.
It would just be something different. Like this isn't working for a lot of people. It's leaving a lot of people out.
Totally disillusioned.
And it's just pitting everyone against one another rather than, because like also like just with friendships and relationships in life, it'd be so much easier to talk about the candidates because it's like, well, I like this one, but I could see how you like this one for these reasons. Or like, whereas now it's like, I'm not going to spend any time doing that because I can't with this person.
I did try her. She was married. So salty. I'll still think about it.
And then he said, "Don't you just love the smell of napalm in the morning?"
We be faster than Django.
We are in the apocalypse now.
I can't stop, won't stop. Did try her. She was married.
I am always wondering if other people are feeling similarly to me about this. Everything feels partisan, and it feels more dire and more destructive in terms of the conversations that we're having or refusing to have than it has been, in my adult life since I've been paying attention to politics. Yeah. And I'm wondering if that's me living an insular life and struggling to come to terms with people whose views I differentiate from, or is that kind of universally true of American politics right now?
It definitely feels like way more harsh for me. Like if I see somebody in a Trump shirt or like a MAGA hat, I get like nervous and I want to like go the other direction, which I'm like, is that like wrong of me to do? Because I'm like I don't know anything about this person. Just with all of the things that this administration and that he has done and that he believes in and speaks towards, I have a very hard time with people who would still support him and that rhetoric and hateful speech. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel similarly. There's someone I'm really, really close to that leans that way politically. And in my mind, it's pretty much destroying the relationship that we have because the conversation doesn't even seem to bridge many like rational factual gaps anymore. It's like, haha, this person is a joke, and the Mueller report is fake, Russian collusion is fake, Obamagate is real. If you live in that
Right.
world,
Yeah.
I don't know how to talk to you, and I don't know what common ground we have except for like fuck ISIS.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know it's really hard, and like there are people that I care about that lean that way, but like as time has gone on, I've had a harder and harder time, especially after so many times, but after his handling, or you could say lack thereof handling of the coronavirus, I'm like, clearly he doesn't care about people or the American people. And his lack of response and like action on the BLM movements, like he hasn't really voiced much support at all, and instead has like sent police to cities.
It's one thing if you're apathetic with politics. I think a lot of straight white
Yeah.
guys can get away with that because it doesn't truly, if they think it doesn't affect them, even though politics can affect every part of your life. Local government affects how you can build your house, right? Like,
Yeah.
but the problem that I have with people that think coronavirus isn't a big deal is the fact that we have the worst outbreak in the world, or we have had one of the worst outbreaks in the world, and that it is directly impacting our economy. You would think that those people could get on
Right.
board with this correlation of the worst response has obviously happened in this country because we have the worst outbreak, and it's sustained for so long, and it's going to continue to stay this way. And our economy is so decimated by it. Who are the people in charge? Well, if you can't place blame at the top, and
Right.
you're just going to shuttle it onto, some Democratic lawmaker that you hate, I don't know. I don't know where we go from there because it's a
Right.
fucking pandemic. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. Like I do not know what to tell you. Like it's so strange, and it's like so jarring to me because I'm just like, if you don't believe we're in a pandemic, like yeah, you're not rooted in a reality that I'm living in.
and like you mentioned, I must assume the internet just makes it worse and makes it harder to have those conversations.
Yeah, it does. Cause it's yeah, people don't they're not like looking at you in the eye. Like they're not like seeing your body language or anything like that. And it's interesting because the people who comment the most are the people who make no content whatsoever. Yeah, so they also like don't really know that vulnerability of like putting yourself out there. And like there are things in some of my videos that like, oh, I would have worded something differently. Like, oh, that's a good
Mhm.
point. Like that I could see like why um that it just wasn't the right tone, or like wasn't the right order of words. Like syntax can mean so much, and like, but yeah, the people who are the harshest and the meanest usually don't make any content of their own, which I always find interesting.
They're just lurkers. They're just there to fucking ruin your day.
Yeah, they're just lurkers and they just want to make you feel bad. Like, oh my God, so many people are like, they'll say like a mean word, like bitch or like whatever. And then they'll be like living at home, like a liberal, freeloading off your parents.
Wow, how special of them.
I know. I'm just like, oh my God, you seem so sweet. Are you single?
Good one.
Yeah. I
You're
just
never
want
getting your dick wet.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so you're an incel. Lovely.
Right.
Like,
Congratulations. I have a lot to say about Joe Rogan not like pushing some of his conservative guests when his politics seem to be fairly liberal, based on him endorsing Bernie Sanders. But I think he does a fairly good job bringing people on and having civilized discussions. But the context of that is like not how you have those conversations in normal everyday life, because they respect his celebrity. They respect the fact that it's a huge platform and it's going to live on the internet. And I
right.
think that kind of conversation is a little bit different than someone commenting horrendous things on your TikTok, or people getting into fights on 4chan and Reddit. Right?
I know. And then it's like, TikTok's also scary because like people can like duet your video. And then like let's say for like one reason or another, like you delete your video, which like I try not to do unless there's like a typo. Yeah, it's just like I had one video that was getting duetted a lot by libertarians actually. That one I learned a lot from, like, because libertarians would repost it, and then some of them would have such lovely conversations. Because I would always say thank you for reposting, like, Here's why I believe those things. And then sometimes they would devolve into these nice conversations. But then like sometimes people would like use words like brain damaged. And I'm like,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
okay, well, there goes the discussion we were gonna have, because I'm not gonna argue with someone who just casually uses the word brain damaged, you know?
Right.
Like I'm not gonna spend my time doing that.
It's such a measure of like how we've evolved as a species that the internet and that comment culture is even a thing.
I know, because it's like that's I think another thing. Like I'm 32 on this app, so I've been on apps before. Like I know how the discourse plays out. Like I know how the fighting goes. Like, and I've seen people handle it and like in gracious ways, and I've seen people handle it in like really strange ways. And I think like for a lot of people on this app, this is like one of their first social media apps. I think like, and this is me being old, but I'm like, I think if you are to look back on this moment, you're gonna be like, oh, that was like kind of mean to like
For sure.
call someone the R word on a video I made about their video I disagree with. Like,
Totally. And you know that that's going to be a generational problem. Like all these people are going to become politicians one day and it's going to be like, hey, don't you remember when you commented on someone's TikTok?
right.
Like, oh, they're going to have to deal with that. Oh, hey, you had an OnlyFans. Good on you. See if the Republicans can handle it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I also feel for how critical I'm being of this internet comment culture. I take the bait way too often.
I know. Like sometimes I'm just like in such the mood for like for an internet like discussion, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't have the capacity for it today whatsoever. Like, I do not have the patience. I know that I'm not gonna like be helpful, but like, yeah, I have like a couple cousins and like aunts on Facebook who definitely post some things, and sometimes I take the bait. But I never am like proud of myself for taking the bait. Like never, unless the only places I'm proud of it is on TikTok when it has led to those like actual conversations. But Facebook, I've never gotten there with anybody. Like, I don't know if it's a generational thing or what, but it's weird.
I wanted to ask you, how do you think that we have more constructive conversations and get to that place, that like better place more often?
I think slowing down, you don't have to reply right away. You can take a minute. There was even a time where I was like going back and forth with someone, and then he said something and I was like, do you mind if I take like a beat to like reply to this? I know we're talking a bit right now. He's, oh, of course. And then like the next day I like followed up and was like, okay, I read this and this, because a lot of the information that you talk about sometimes it's dense stuff, like I've posted about defunding the police and like what that means, and like sometimes people will reply with articles and da da da. So it's like that stuff you don't read quickly. You can take your time to process things and like form an opinion and on it. But I think just like a lot of patience for the other person, and like not putting them in a box right away. Like not being like, you're a racist, you're wrong, you're an idiot. Like one that they say a lot is libtard, which is like,
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
lovely. So nice. Such a nice blend.
Very original.
But I just think it's like taking the time to just like respect them as a person until they prove you to not, sort of like as much as you can. And I mean, if they have like a Confederate flag profile picture, I'm not going to try and talk to them at all.
And I understand especially why some Black people would be like, I'm not going to have a conversation with my oppressor.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But I do love that idea of taking a breath and returning to it at a later time when you've had some space.
Yeah, because like sometimes you just get so amped on like being a keyboard warrior, where it's like,
Mhm.
all right, well, like if you want some discourse to come from like social media and stuff, like you do need to take the time to process. It's like when people post so many like articles to their Instagram story, it's like, well, did you posted 15 in one day? All of these are like very dense and very like rich in learnings and all of this. So like, did you actually process it or did you like post it?
I think that also gives you space to be willing to learn about the topic, right?
Yeah.
There's so much to learn about these things because they are so nuanced and dense. And, say I'm a conservative that's listening to this show, and you, as Mel, say, yeah, defund the police. I was posting about it. If that person immediately reacts and says, okay, I can't engage, that's very different than hearing all the nuances of what defund the police really means, because that's just a tagline and it means so many things. And
Something I was like thinking about, it's like, oh yeah, it's putting the hardships of like what a lot of the police have to deal with onto like professionals who are better suited to handle it, like mental health professionals and counselors and youth counselors. And like the police have such a wide scope of responsibilities, and like, yeah, it needs to be relooked at and like reallocated.
and if you are a keyboard warrior and you don't even want to speak through those things, it's like, what if really what you're saying is trying to empower the police so they don't kill people, like by
Right.
kneeling on them, right?
Yeah.
Empower them by being more integrated, thoughtful members of our community, which will make their jobs easier and our lives better.
Yeah, taking away a lot of their budgets for building just better social programs. Like, why not just like, yeah, focus on building good people and social programs that aren't just focused on the police. Like that, it's not working. Hasn't been working. Like Black people can tell you, like, it's never worked. Like,
Right.
we're just waking up to it more, but
Mhm.
it's crazy.
Well, fingers crossed. Here's to hoping that it won't get more vitriolic and terrible, and hopefully some things will
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
after the election. At least that's my hope, that we can mend some of those wounds together.
Hit it!
Time for indulgences, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
We are now paying our penance at the Sinners Debate Club.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
We were going to talk about another internet princess, Taylor Swift. She's such a polarizing figure to some. A lot of people are like super fangirls over her. What's your take on T Swift in 2020?
I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that like on a surface level, I think her music's fun. I think she's an amazing songwriter. I do. Like I think she is of our generation. She's very, very talented with that. Obviously, she grew up very privileged as a white woman. I wish she would have spoken out more about like feminism and like that sort of thing rather than doing it all for show with her squad with like the
Oh my
1989
fucking God,
album.
the squad.
Yeah, like that was just felt very showy and like odd.
I almost
then-
forgot about the squad.
Yeah. But then like her letter to Apple Music about like all the Scooter Braun shit, yeah, you could argue that was like self-serving because like it was about her, but it also outed such like a big issue like in the music industry, especially for like female artists and young artists. So
Yeah, what artist doesn't want to own their masters, right?
Right.
Like that's your pride and joy. That's your baby.
yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna get some flack and hate for this, but I just can't with Taylor Swift.
That's
And
fair.
the
That's
part that I hate the most is I like some of her songs. Like I could probably sing Style right now at karaoke and just be so happy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Some of her music I think is total garbage, like what was it, Me or something? Me, whatever
Yeah,
that one was.
that was bad.
I was
That
like,
was
you've been doing this for so long, you gotta do better. But I do agree, she's a really talented songwriter, like does her job quite well. I think she's been inspiring for a lot of young girls in the country, but she is so fucking problematic. And like we discussed, in the same way that I'm problematic as a white person that's trying to be a good feminist. But I think the thing that I find most aggravating about her is, you're right, she wasn't political until it became kind of cool to be political as a pop star.
right.
Specifically with the feminism angle, she used to say like, I love men and I'm not a feminist. And now it's almost everything she does, and it feels quite performative for me.
Yeah.
Especially when her songs aren't necessarily that. And her music videos are so like culturally appropriate so
Yeah,
often, right?
right,
Like she writes songs where she slut shames other women, and then
right.
she brings her girl squad on stage at her concerts, but they're all stick thin, tall white women.
And then when she got called out for that, then she like switched it up. It's all very reactive rather than proactive.
Totally. And her worldview to me seems very myopic. It's all about Taylor, right?
Yes,
Which I think
yes,
as an artist you have to be sometimes, right? Who am I
totally.
to criticize her because she's so fucking successful?
Yeah.
But it's, look what you made me do. That was about her. Bad Blood, that was about her. And she even made the issue with Nicki Minaj about her and totally overlooked the inherent racism in the industry.
Mostly I can't with her, but like there's parts of her that I'm like, yeah.
Right? Like if her song comes on and I'm drunk with some of my girlfriends, I'm not gonna not dance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Hopefully Taylor continues to learn and grow like America.
Exactly. Hopefully Taylor learns and grows like America and supports ranked choice. Taylor Swift, if you're
Yes.
listening.
There we go. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And then I just wanted to close out the pod because it's not all apocalypse. We have a little bit of good stuff going on, the But First Coffee segment. And you brought up a really good one with John Lewis. Do you want to speak to his piece?
Yeah, I just thought that his final essay that he wrote was just it was so profound, and despite everything that's going on in the world, he still has so much faith and hope for good things and for the future. Everything about the way he like fought racism and just fought for the right things and for all people, not just people that looked for like him. And no one's like free until we all are. That's not the direct quote. I just think that there's so much people could learn from him, and it was very disappointing how Trump talked about him on Access, but this is the uplifting part of the show. So but no, I just think he's like an incredible human being, and I'm thankful that we had him while we did.
Absolutely. Yeah, such an admirable man in the face of so much opposition, physical, mental, emotional, social,
Right.
political.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring to, especially within this climate, to see someone at the end of his life, after all the adversity he faced, still having that sort of optimistic view and encouraging us to
Yeah,
continue along that path.
exactly.
That's
Exactly.
awesome.
So
Yeah, I love what he says, get into some good trouble.
yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say good trouble. Exactly. Yes.
Well, Mel, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the pod. I really, really
Oh my
appreciate
gosh,
it. It's
thank you for
been
having me. This
lovely.
was really fun. I was so flattered.
Can you tell people where to find you online and if you have
Yeah.
any like projects coming up where they can check those out?
Yeah, you can find me on Mel from TikTok, and then my Instagram is Mel Owens, and I'll be announcing something very soon about a project I'm working on. So I'm excited.
Thank you so much. And because Mel was so thoughtful in bringing up the op-ed that was published, the words written by John Lewis before his death, published on the day of his funeral, I wanted to read just the title and the first paragraph of the op-ed. It's still up online. Please take the time to really digest his words. Such a powerful piece by such an important and inspiring man. And the title of the piece is Together You Can Redeem the Soul of Our Nation. He writes, though I am gone, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. While my time here has now come to an end, I want you to know that in the last days and hours of my life, you inspired me. You filled me with hope about the next chapter of the great American story when you used your power to make a difference in our society. Millions of people motivated simply by human compassion laid down the burdens of division. Around the country and the world, you set aside race, class, age, language, and nationality to demand respect for human dignity. I highly suggest that you read the rest of his piece, and it may be clear now that the sign-off I use at the end of every podcast is from John Lewis. But I'll leave you with a song at the end. And as usual, please get into some good trouble. And I'll talk to you next week.
to bed. We'll chase your pleasure, jump up on board, taking the red to Mars. Let's take a spaceship out in the sky, fly to the moon, and take out those lights, space burning glide, riding into the night. 'Cause you're working so hard, but this is a cue. Just for tonight, I'll take care of you. Leave all this gravity behind. Chase after comets and jump on the trails. Get a small taste from the Milky Way. And then we go back to the star. We gonna head to planet Earth, landing from space right into